Hello and welcome to Board Game Bonkers. I'm Jay Sears, and under the Meeple light today we have Braiden Watling from All You Can Board YouTube channel. Welcome, Braiden.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Thanks so much for joining us. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a Canadian board gamer. Started gaming obviously with my family at a young age, but really started getting into the hobby around 2014 or 2013, around there. I think the first games that really opened up my mind, I think, were Escape the Cursed Temple and Space Alert. I think those were the ones where I was like, oh my God, what is going on with board games right now? I want more of this. And ever since, I've just kind of expanded my collection and started to play more and more games. I really enjoy social deduction games as well as party games because I usually play with a little bit more of a casual audience. But I do love the more thinky, crunchy Euro games as well too. So I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to my preferences for sure.
And you're one of the new additions to All You Can Board as well. How's that going?
Yeah, that's right. I joined All You Can Board in January, I think it was. So it's been half a year, I guess, and it's been good. A little bit of learning on the ropes and still kind of improving for me. But it's been a lot of fun. The guys, Carlo and Dylan, who also started the channel in 2020, have been really accommodating, very welcoming, obviously, and I've known them for uh, a few years now, so it's been a lot of fun actually, and it's given me some motivation to play even more games, and especially games maybe that I wouldn't necessarily try. Which it's kind of opened up my board game horizons a little bit more too. So yeah, it's been really really good. It's been rewarding for sure.
Yeah, it's a good point there about opening your horizon, playing more games. We're actually going to do a video on that about that and how I discovered kind of games that use mechanisms that I hate, and I've actually found games that I love that use those mechanisms. So
Interesting.
when that comes out, I'm sure we'll let people know about it. And maybe I'll maybe get it done before actually we get this video. Let's just see how it goes. Now, for a lot of viewers that are not familiar with this format, so let me just briefly explain. So we'll be presenting 10 questions to our guest, but there's a twist. Now, this is not a quiz, it's a Q&A. And the twist is, our guest has no idea what the questions are being. We have no idea which questions are coming up. That's because they'll be drawn from this bowl here. So we'll be presenting 10 questions to our guest, and we'll see how they get on. When we finish with those 10 questions, we'll move them to the side. So future guests coming up will have 10 completely new and unique, fresh questions. Now, as you can see, we're actually dwindling down as we get through to our guests one by one. So, will our guest Friday going to be polite, or will they be a little bit nervous? We're about to find out as we present 10 questions to our guest. Are you ready, Braden?
Let's do it.
Fantastic. Let's dive into question number one. Now, most of these are board game related, but we might have a few fluffy questions. We'll see what the first one is. So, what do you do to get into the creative mindset when you're creating content? Do you have any particular ritual before you step up to the camera?
I mean, not necessarily before we get to the camera, like before we start recording, but if we're trying to think of ideas, we have a group chat basically between the three of us that we throw ideas out there and kind of build upon. And also we occasionally have just meetings over Discord sometimes, and we'll throw out brainstorm ideas. Kind of what I like to do is I like to build off of ideas. So if someone puts an idea, even if you don't think it's a good idea or whatever, you should think of like what is the next step to build on top of that, because usually good ideas, from what I've learned at least, sometimes good ideas are one step away from like a bad idea, and like a slight change or a slight addition to something makes something really interesting. So our we did a we were kind of brainstorming. We're honestly almost always brainstorming for this kind of video, for our April Fool's video that we do every year, which is definitely not serious, very funny. We're like, what can we do? We thought about talking about board game components because, components in board games are becoming more and more deluxified in certain games here and there, right? And we wanted to talk about the best board game components. Well, we chose board game components that were silly, things that weren't necessarily remarkable anyway. I talked about a Jenga piece specifically, one specific Jenga piece being one of the best board game components. So silly stuff like that, we kind of came up together with just kind of throwing ideas out there. And there's probably like 4 or 5 other ideas that I think are probably on the cutting room floor, but something that let us get to those steps along the way to getting to where we did for this year's April Fool's video.
You've taken ideas from others like Paula, is it Paula Darling, who's kind of
Polydemic, yes.
and does those kind of sketches as well. You ever pinching ideas of her or anyone else?
I mean, I think sketches are not really our style, at least right now. I won't say not, we won't be doing that in the future because we definitely might be. And Paula is hilarious, brilliant for what she's done so far. I don't know if we really look at other gaming channels. Like maybe we would look towards what they've done and then try to put our own spin on it. I don't think that we're particularly interested in um, not necessarily stealing, but we can obviously use other channels as influence and inspiration for some of our content ideas. I think it's a good way to kind of get yourself started, but maybe finding your own spin on how to do a review. Whether for us, we don't necessarily give it a score or anything like that. We've come up with a system called Own It, Play It, or Skip It. That's one of our series where we say for us specifically, this game was a play. I'm glad I played it and I learned something from it, but it's probably not going to stay in my collection kind of thing. So, it's a little bit different. It's not completely wild where you're unfamiliar with what you're watching, but that kind of concept. So little spins like that, I think, can kind of help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to have some variety, isn't it? It keeps it fresh.
For
And
sure.
so much out there for people. Fantastic. So let's move on to our second question, Braden.
Let's do it.
Lights come out. Okay, so what's the one recent trend that you've noticed in the board game industry that's having a positive impact?
Ooh, a positive impact. I mean, I think things like GameFound and Kickstarter have been overall a positive for the board game community. I think it's allowing board games that wouldn't necessarily have gotten made in the past, allow them to get to production now and get to the audiences that are interested in them. And I think that's generally good for the hobby. We're getting more games. I would like to see more voices be in terms of accessibility and just kind of general scope. As if more people have accessible are able to design games and get their voices out there, we're going to be getting better games. We're going to be getting games that are going to be much different, newer, fresher, right? I think it's all going to be positive. And I think that's what kind of Kickstarter, GameFound, any crowdfunding platform has allowed games kind of to move forward with, which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely, and they've done extremely well. And it's been discussed a couple of times about game funding and Kickstarter. We'll see how that goes in the future. So competition can be healthy. So let's just see what direction it goes in.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's move on to question number 3 then, Braden.
I'm hoping for what is the name of your dog in this question?
We haven't had the fluffy ones yet. Do you know, surprisingly, out of most of the guys so far, we've had very few fluffy questions out. But actually 25 of fluffy questions. I think I'm sticking down here somewhere. I stuck it in the bowl, but
Okay, good to know.
think out. This one, okay, this is quite an interesting one. So, how would you describe the board game culture?
Oh, out on a whole?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. This is actually a great question. I like this a lot because actually we recently um at AYCB, All You Can Board, um we hosted a little get together with some of our local fans who are here in Winnipeg, Canada. Um, and like every interaction that we've had with our community has been fantastic and unbelievable. Like I know a lot of people say that, but I feel like I don't know what it is about the people who've watched All You Can Board. They seem to be just very generous, kind, thoughtful people who are remarkable. And one example of this is we hosted a 24-hour live stream about a year ago in May, and we were raising money. We were playing board games for 24 hours straight, didn't sleep. This is all up on our YouTube as well. And we were raising money for a local mental health charity, and we raised over $15,000. Like that's insanity. The generosity of the community, the support that we received from there was overwhelming and absolutely a memory that I will not forget. I'm hoping that we can get back to doing those kinds of things too, because I think that kind of that is kind of what's, to me at least, is what is representative of board game culture. Is these people are extremely nice, thoughtful, usually very intelligent too, and they're just all around. I mean, great humans from what I've experienced too. So that's where it lies on my side of things so far.
Yeah, it's a fantastic generosity and kindness there from you lads, and I'm sure they're all whoever received the funds would be gratefully appreciated of that. And you're right, the culture in the board game industry, you hear a lot of positivity and the fantastic things that go on in the industry. It's a great place to be around, isn't it? And you play with so many different people, different cultures, with different backgrounds, and it just seems to be a lovely happy, fulfilling place where you can have an enjoyable experience. And you've given a great example of that generosity that people can bring along with them as well. So fantastic sharing that, Braden.
Yeah, and one thing that's added for me too, honestly, I still am a very competitive person, but when it comes to games now, sometimes I'm making choices where I'm not maybe making the choice to win the game. Most times I am, but oftentimes I'll be making choices. What is the most fun thing that I can do? And that has also played into changing who I am. And I feel like, you're going to get a variety of people who are going to choose to win or play, but I think that it's such a great uniter across the board of just having fun over board games.
Absolutely. And hopefully we can get more people involved in it.
For sure. That's the
So
goal.
let's move on to question number 4.
Let's dig in.
Okay, we're aiming for a fluffy one here, Braden. Let's see. Well, this is the big one. I don't think it's
Oh, let's go. I was gonna say, give me a hard one here too. I'm ready.
so. Have you ever played a board game that has been unplayable because of a board game mechanism that doesn't work? If so, which one stands out?
Ooh, unplayable. Unplayable. Besides Monopoly, right? No. It's such a low blow. It's such a low blow. We're not here to hate on it. Unplayable, boy. I don't think I have. Most of the games, I would have to think of like back to when I was super young, and I can't even remember some of those games to be honest. Like most of the games that I try to play at least are very curated. I would watch a lot of content before buying a game. That made it unplayable. And so many of these games, even before they get to market, are just play tested and play tested and play tested. Carlo and I actually were met up with a local designer who we helped him do a little bit of play testing. Now he's very far along with his game. It feels like it's basically finished, and it looks awesome. Um, but there was certainly nothing wrong with it where it wasn't playable for sure. So I don't think I've encountered that, and I'm going to keep ruminating as we go through the questions to think if I can think of an example, because I'm
Yeah,
sure there is one, but off the top of my head, I think all the games I've played, I've been able to play and didn't think it was, I didn't feel like it was a table flip moment.
there's one game I played where it was so unbalanced that it would just became like I wouldn't name what it is, but there was a game that was very early in my board gaming career, and it was so unbalanced that you just couldn't play it because of that imbalance. And there have been games in the past where they have been unbalanced, but today modern games are so tight and, like you say, have been play tested to death. It's very, very rare you get a game that is considered broken. So they do exist, but very rare indeed. But yeah,
Yeah.
let us know if something does pop up later on. And,
Yeah, for sure.
okay, so let's move on to number 5. So a couple of tough ones. No fluffies yet, Braden. Let's see what comes out.
That's a-okay by me.
Yeah, I think I think you're getting all the tough ones. So, which board game company are you most concerned about and why? So it could be a board game company that perhaps is not doing too well because obviously Kickstarter isn't selling as many games as it was during the pandemic. Or it could be a
Right.
different board game company that perhaps you're concerned with for different views. Now, we don't have to name particular names of board game companies, but it could be that there's perhaps small game board game companies or larger board game companies you're concerned with.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of publisher, whether it's my favorite or least favorite, whichever it is, especially Canadian publishers too. Concerned, I would say concerned. I just hope that they keep going. You know what I mean? Because board games are such a niche market that they don't have the same market as sports or even hockey or football, English football in this case, or soccer in North America. Um, but there's not that same market, right? It's a subset of people who play games, and then even a smaller subset of people who then kind of are really into games. So in terms of like concern, I just hope that they're able to stay afloat and keep producing great games, right? Because you get like two or three bad games in a row, and all of a sudden now you're not looking so hot, right? So, you know, um, Flat Out Games, which is local here in Winnipeg. A few of the members are based out of here. Scorpion Mask is another Canadian publisher that I can think of at the top of my head. So I'm not concerned about like what they're doing and what they're producing. I just want them to continue producing great games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all want great games, don't we? Not the ones rubbish game on the table. We want
For
great.
sure, absolutely.
Yes,
But
absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see how the industry moves forward over the years, and I'm sure we've had this discussion with previous guests about perhaps small publishers may struggle in the future as games sales start to dry up, and that's just natural for any business in any industry. It
yeah,
happens. We hope that board game publishers continue to keep doing what they're doing, absolutely, and bringing some good quality games out into the shops and on people's shelves.
for sure. And I will say, just because I don't want my answer to be viewed as a cop out answer, I will say I won't name names, but I will say there is one particular publisher which I think maybe has been over deluxifying and um, maybe adding on additional content that is very unnecessary and seems very high priced. Now, obviously, if people are paying for it, they're certainly justified for it. But for me personally, definitely, don't get me wrong, I love production value in games. When like I own a copy of Nemesis, I've just recently bought that. I've been dying to play it. Like just bought it. I played it through solo, and that has got some production to it for sure with the minis. But other games, again, not naming names, just you know, the games like the base game usually is really good, really solid from these games, but I think maybe just going a little bit too over the top with it. That's just my opinion though, but not naming names.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a I won't name names either. There's some other content creators raised some concerns with that publisher as well. But yeah, we'll see how they get on with especially Kickstarter with the sales. But
For
okay,
sure.
moving on then to our next question. So we have a few tough ones, Braden. So
Yeah, I've been asking for them.
let's hope we get a nice one. Let's be kind. Okay. Well, I quite like this one. Okay. Which YouTube creator would you most likely have a gaming session with?
Oh, I mean, I think. Oh, would I most likely have a gaming session or like to?
Like to.
Oh, like to. I mean, I gotta say, Rodney from Watch It Played, he's Canadian, you know. Jeff and Jamie from Foster the Meeple also come to mind just because they're also Canadian. Um, and our Naveen and Monique, are they? I can't remember if they are Canadian or not now, actually. That's really bad of me to not remember that. But I think that whole crew, honestly, I would love to play games with. I mean, to be fair, honestly, any content creators, like Board Game Barrage as well, those guys have been listening to him for a long, long time. Um, like has been like I would love to play. I'm hoping that we get to go to a convention one day and just like blitz out all these games. But I think off the top of my head, for sure, Rodney Smith, um, Jamie and Jeff from Foster the Meeple, definitely up there for sure.
Fantastic, yeah, and great picks as well. I'm sure many people love to sit around the table there and get a few games underway. Right, so let's move on to our next question, Braden, and let's hope we get some more fluffy ones out like that.
Yeah, that's great.
At least you've had a break. So number 7. So what is the biggest challenge you faced in your content creator career?
Oh, this is a really great question, actually, because it's something that I'm actually feeling right now. It's very present, and I feel the hardest thing I think for what I've experienced so far in my 6 months of content creation is that I don't feel like I'm playing enough games. Like I'm not getting them to the table, or I don't have enough time because I want to be able to speak to games. But that means I need to be getting probably multiple playthroughs of them, right? So I need to be organizing game nights. I need to be going to game nights as much as I can. And my friend group, who I kind of grew up with, like they have kids and everything, and they're busy a lot of the time, and maybe they're not interested in more, Hansa Teutonica-esque games, let's say, right? That's why we're gonna play more party games with them, which is totally fine. Just One is my number one game of all time right now. So uh, that I'm totally okay with that. But there's going to be an appetite to play a little bit more in depth of a game. So I think that's the challenge right now. Is like I feel like I'm not playing enough games, um, and it's tough because there's just only so many hours in the day, and other people are obviously have schedules to do other things. So um, yeah, it's difficult. Even getting together with Carlo and Dylan to film a video, right? We have to coordinate our schedules together. Um, and then if we're filming a video, that means that we're not playing a game at the same time. So we have to make sure that we're continuing to do that. And if guess what? I'm also playing a D&D group separately as well. So there's like so many moving parts to try and just coordinate just to cover 1, 2 games to get a few plays in. I think that is probably the most challenging so far, and probably honestly will continue to be.
I certainly feel the frustration, certainly when kids come along, because then things get put on hold. And
For sure.
same issue where my one friend group there, they've got a couple of children, and the other friend group have just had a child, and it's okay. How are we going to fit this in and trying to coordinate that? It's like trying to coordinate a trip to Mount Everest, and it's
Yeah,
really tough. So I completely understand it. And then I suppose unless I'm sure a lot of people will have a similar viewpoint as well, because unless you're living with someone as well, or you've got some local gaming groups to go to, it's really difficult to get games to the table. And if you're not into solo games, that I'm not a solo gamer. I really don't like playing games solo. I just love that vibe of having people around.
yeah,
Uh, it's extremely tough to get the games to the table. So I'm sure lots of other people say, share a similar, you know, viewpoint on trying to get games to the table can be tough.
for sure. And yeah, and like I have a wife, and she will play games with me often. Like we've blasted out probably 20 or so games of Codenames Duet recently. Um, but sometimes neither of us is just feeling up to playing a game. We're just not motivated. It's like, okay, well, we had this crazy week. The weekend's here. We have time. We could play. It's like, no, we're just gonna watch a movie instead, kind of thing. Because we're done. We don't want to do any more thinking. It's good. So you also have to kind of be in the right mindset too. So yeah, for sure. It's tough.
Absolutely. And it's an investment to play games as well. Some games are long, but yeah, it's good to have a bit of variety as well. Then the small games to take out maybe a 30-minute game. It's not too finky as well. It's important to have
Yeah.
a absolutely. So let's move on to our next question. So we're number 8. So we've got a couple of nice ones. We've got one tangled up. That's a bit long. That's a sneak on this.
Ooh.
Okay. So if you could have a magic wand and change one thing currently, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it's so broad. Like the first thing that came to my mind was just to uh organize my collection. Uh, we do uh we do a series called we rate and roast other people's collections and their organization, what they have and stuff. And after seeing so many of these now, I've my collection was roasted by Dylan and Carlo. I think it was like the second episode or first episode or something like that that they did. And I have no organization whatsoever for my games. It's basically like the games that I like at the top, and then they're kind of roughly organized by color, box shape, just kind of wherever they fit. But I think like for the first answer that comes to my mind is just organizing my collection. And that might be a future video that I put up on either YouTube or for our patrons too. Just, yeah,
How many games have you got?
I have probably just over 100 games, and I'm looking probably to sell, I don't know, 15-ish of them for sure, probably around there. So I'm probably hovering around 100. I don't think it will get any larger than, I mean, I say this. I'm saying this and it's recorded and I'm saying that it won't get any larger, but maybe it will. It might. But I right now I'm happy with the size. And I think I'm just going to start now really curating what my picks are going to be.
Yeah, let's hope you can manage that temptation not to buy too many games before you can rearrange your collection there on your shelving. But yeah, hopefully this will give some other people a motivation to maybe sort their gaming shelves out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think now that I'm thinking about my answer even more, a better answer maybe to this question would be a little bit more diversity in the design space. Um, seeing other content creators, female content creators, uh, in the BIPOC community as well. Like additional voices, I think would just be great to continue to evolve. And just like we spoke about for crowdfunding, the same thing here. If we can have everyone represented, it's I think it's just going to be an overall positive thing for gaming.
Yeah, absolutely. I did try and get the kids and Kim involved, but they ran away when I mentioned pop into my videos. So
Yeah.
so let's move on to question number.
Yes.
So we've been kind to you, Braiden. You've had a few tough ones, but a few nice ones as well.
It's been good. It's been balancing out.
So describe your first experience of playing a modern board game.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I kind of mentioned it in my intro, but I well, I mean, Pandemic was one of those games later on too, where I was like, this is great. But really, what it was the different mechanisms and mechanics. So in Escape from the Cursed Temple, um, rolling the dice in real time and being able to move and be under a timer at the same time, and needing a certain amount, and then it being co-op between everyone. That changed my perspective on like how games were played. Didn't really, I don't think I really came. I'm trying to think if I played any co-op games up until that point, which I don't think I did. So that was really fun. That real time element I think was fantastic. Um, and then Space Alert, programming your actions and trying to coordinate with everyone else about which way they're going, and then misremembering, oh, which you've placed, and then, oh, something else is happening here too, and oh, we need to jiggle the mouse and go back to here. Like that I thought was a lot of fun, and very tough too. But it was just a lot of chaotic fun that I had interacting with other people, trying to get things right, but it just not working out in the end. So I think that like those kind of mechanics. I really like co-op games too. Party games are a big fan. I'm a big fan of as well. Those things that either maybe we're working towards something together, or there is kind of like a sneaky mechanic kind of thing. I really 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 enjoyed, and I really like that out of those two games especially. I thought those were just so fun. The tension that it brought to the real time element, I think, was just so good. Um, yeah, it's something that actually I really enjoyed with Captain Sonar years later. That real time game, the one game that I played of Captain Sonar was so good. Probably one of my all time highlights for sure.
It's great listening to these experiences, and everyone's got their own unique kind of take on their, first time experience of picking up and playing a modern board game. I won't be sharing mine here, but maybe one in time when I do a Q&A, I'll share my experience. Which
Yeah, we'll have to
might
pull
not be,
questions for you at some point.
but we will see. We will see if we get there. Okay, so let's move on to a final question, Braiden. So let's give this a bit of a shuffle. Okay, so what's the most frustrating thing about conventions? Do you go to many conventions?
I haven't. I've gone to one local convention for like a few hours because it's really all I had, unfortunately, had time for, the weekend that it was happening. Um,
Tell you what,
so
let's ask this in another way then. What do you
yes,
think would be the most frustrating thing about going to a convention?
I think what I would say would be that not having enough time to play everything you would want to play. That's one thing actually playing the 24-hour marathon that we did. It went by so fast. I was like, it felt like we played 5 games. Like we played some smaller games, we played some longer games, but like I felt like there was like no time at all. Like you get to play like three games probably during the day, depending on the games, obviously. But I think there'd be so much to see. You'd feel like you wouldn't get to see it all necessarily, um, or maybe not have enough time to spend with certain people as well. So that's probably where I would think it would be, is just not having enough time to get to do all the things that you would want to do.
Yeah, the conventions can be daunting, can't it? There's so much to see and do, and you're right. Trying to find the time to play the games, because people go there to buy a lot of games and have an
Yeah,
opportunity to play some of these or play some new games and need to have that new experience with, and or with some friends I've met up with. And you're right, trying to find that time because everyone's finding the time to do different things. Would be frustrating for a lot of people that are here as well. A lot on these content creators who go to conventions that they wish they could just have another day, but
yeah,
also exhausting as well. So I can understand why they want to get home and get to the bed.
absolutely. Yeah, I could only imagine.
But well, that brings us to the end, Braden. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of your experiences. And we wish you all the best in the YouTube channel. And put all the links in the description down below. And that brings us to the end. But if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving that like button a hit. Well, I think it was a like button, but YouTube change it every now and again. And also, please do get involved as well. Leave a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on today's show and the particular highlights, and perhaps there's some questions you'd like us to ask future guests. Well, whatever it might be, we'd love to get you involved, so please leave a comment down below. So you've been watching Under the Meeple Lights, the Board Game Bonkers show. So thank you so much for joining us. My name's Jay Sears. Until next time, take care.